On one hand, because of an early effective lockdown, we bought ourselves some time so that we could understand better what is really effective in preventing deaths from this disease and in increasing the number of beds with oxygen facility. As a result, the death rate per million population in India is indeed much lower compared to the death rates in some of the developed countries of the world. However, on the other hand, we also realized that there are some pretty bad effects of imposing too many restrictions. The most important, of course, is loss of employment. Some 3.5 crore salaried individuals lost their job. Daily wage earners were left with no means to earn their bread. Many people with small businesses who had reached a decent standard of living after years of struggle suddenly found their world collapsing. And even today, as the economic slowdown continues, a lot of families are dealing with economic uncertainty. People are stressed. How will they continue to run their families? Many people who could not manage the rent have wrapped up and have returned to their native place. Just imagine, if the shutdown meant that the banks were also closed and our debit cards also didn't work, then for how many days would we be able to survive the economy remaining shut? Certain occupations may be non-essential for us, but for people involved in that occupation, that was the only way for him to earn his bread, and therefore that occupation was essential for his survival. A lot of people are not having enough to eat and are suffering from malnutrition. And because the schools are closed, the midday meal program is also not running properly. Because of malnutrition, they are more vulnerable for a severe form of COVID developing and for developing various other health problems also. You may be surprised to know that 68% of the deaths in children under the age of 5 years are attributable to malnutrition. The second negative consequence, if the routine health services are not functioning properly, or if people are not able to reach the hospitals because the public transport is shut down, then people are not able to get treatment for a lot of other serious diseases. Our children have a very negligible risk of getting a severe COVID infection. But if the routine immunization is not happening properly, then there is a significant risk of young children getting diseases like measles, polio, diphtheria, etc. And hence, along with decreasing COVID deaths, we also need to plan on how we will keep to the minimum these indirect deaths resulting because of the restrictions imposed to decrease the spread of COVID. Third consequence, because of the loss of employment and because of uncertainty about future, a lot of people are undergoing depression and anxiety. And experts are worried that as a result of this, there may be an increase in the rate of suicides. And fourth consequence, during periods of economic uncertainty, donations coming to NGOs decrease. And so a lot of NGOs working for different issues, working for different populations are finding it very difficult to survive. For example, because adoptions have been currently stopped since 5 months, orphanages have to feed more children, but the donations they are getting for it have decreased. Initially, people were asking a question: what is more important for you, economy or people's lives? But because of all these reasons, many people have started to believe that a well-functioning economy is pretty essential for healthy survival of majority of the population. Example, after the first wave of pandemic, Italy decided to open up the economy fast, even though there was a risk of a second wave of pandemic coming. The president explained, Italy's businesses cannot wait for the vaccine to be found. That way, they would end up with a badly damaged economy as well as social structure. Thus, we need to strike a balance between the need to decrease public movement to contain the spread of virus and the need to revive the employment for majority of the people as soon as possible. Until we are able to do that, we need to support our brethren who are facing a much bigger challenge than what we are facing. Few things which we can do. One, we can give preference to buying from smaller shops and from people selling fruits and vegetables on carts. Those people who were lucky enough to have their salaries continued can contribute a part of it for those who were not so lucky. It can be 1%, 5%, 10%, whatever is feasible. And for those who are getting rent, if they are financially stable and if the tenant is facing a lot of economic hardships, it would be nice if they can let it go for some time. And while I make this appeal, I also commit that I will donate 10% of whatever I am able to earn in these months till the pandemic is over. All of us have felt inspired by people who have opened up their hearts during this pandemic. The problem is big and complicated, but if all of us contribute in our own little way, then together we will be able to emerge out of this as a friendlier and happier society. Finally, what is a balanced response so that the direct as well as indirect deaths are kept to the minimum and people are able to lead happy lives? Different people are bound to have different views on this. I would like to give my current view. In metros like Delhi and Mumbai, most restrictions have already been removed. But in smaller towns and rural areas where the number of cases are still increasing, authorities and people are facing this dilemma. So I would discuss this in brief. One critical factor which can keep the number of deaths low is, do we have enough number of hospital beds with oxygen facility so that all those who get a severe form of this disease are able to receive adequate treatment in time? Hence, some restrictions are definitely required so that the virus doesn't spread too fast, everyone doesn't become ill at the same time, and the hospital capacity does not get overwhelmed. At the same time, it would be naive to keep a goal that no one should get COVID infection in a particular area. That is simply not possible. We cannot continue with strict restrictions till the vaccine comes. So whenever we will ease the restrictions, some people are bound to get the infection. So when we impose a strict restriction, all we are doing is postponing these infections by few weeks or months. The most important solution is not restricting the movement of people. It is increasing the number of hospital beds, making the necessary medicines available. And hence I think that till the capacity of the hospitals is not overwhelmed, we need not fear too much about some people getting the infection. And we can allow low risk activities to be started again. Example, people are now moving around in marketplaces, but open grounds and gardens where it is easier to maintain physical distancing, they are still closed. I think now, in order to help people remain fit, we can allow them to walk or exercise in open spaces. Another example would be the frequency of buses has been decreased. Now, will this decrease overcrowding in the buses or will this increase overcrowding? I think now that lockdown has been removed, we should normalize the frequency of buses. And in spite of that, if overcrowding takes place, then only those who are going for medical treatment or those who are going for some work can be permitted to travel. But unless we provide adequate public transport, how will poor people travel? In smaller villages where the buses don't go, if the sharing autos are also still not allowed to function, how will they go to the hospital? While deciding upon these restrictions, local authorities need to keep in mind all the needs which people have and then strike a balance. Regarding quarantine, people who test positive or those who have the typical symptoms of COVID, they and their family members should definitely follow the quarantine. But If someone has gone outside a district for some work, that should no longer become a reason for expecting him to be in quarantine for 2 weeks. In some villages where online teaching of students was not possible, parents were demanding for the schools to be reopened, but authorities were afraid to do so. Some state governments are not willing to restart the schools even in September. I think not allowing the education of students to suffer should also be an important priority while we take this decision. Also, surveys have shown that around 50% parents are not willing to send their children to school even if they reopen. I would encourage them to consider that the risk of a severe COVID infection is extremely low in children. Is it necessary to waste their one academic year for this low risk? One reason why we fear COVID excessively is the numbers which we keep seeing in the news channels daily. And hence, it is important that we look at these numbers in context. Till today, around 60,000 people have died due to COVID in India. That's a huge number. But the population of our country is also huge. 135 crores. Last year, more than 95 lakh people died in our country. To get a comparative idea, let us look at the number of deaths due to certain other factors. Every year in India, 5 lakh people die because of tuberculosis, 1.5 lakh die because of accidents, 2.6 lakh because of alcohol, and 10 lakhs because of tobacco. The point I'm trying to make is COVID is not that dangerous either, that we completely ignore all other issues or all our other priorities. At an individual level, I think elderly people and people with comorbid illnesses do have a significant risk, and so it would be better if they can avoid going out till the vaccine comes. For younger people, yes, they need to start working and the risk is also very low. However, it is essential for them also to follow all the precautions. I would like to highlight that the longer we are present in a potentially infective space, more the number of viral particles which would enter our body and more the risk. Hence, while we go out to work, it is worthwhile to keep our visits and interactions with people as brief as possible. Also, wearing a mask is not a substitute for physical distancing. Keeping at least 2 arms distance from people helps a lot to decrease the number of viral particles we inhale. What I see around me is people wearing masks around their neck, around their mouth. I believe that if we take the effort to explain them that there is strong evidence that masks indeed decrease the risk of getting the infection, that masks decrease the viral load and hence act like a vaccine, that if they wear a mask, then the risk of their near ones, their family members getting the infection through them also decreases, and that few young people also can get long-lasting damage of important organs like heart, brain, lungs, etc. Then for many of them, the motivation to endure the discomfort of wearing a mask will indeed increase. While we shouldn't panic, it's important that we don't trivialize the risk either. Some people have circulated videos saying that doctors have made a hype about coronavirus so that they can earn more money. A relative of a friend of mine, believing in such a propaganda, chose to stay back home even though he had typical symptoms of COVID, because of which he didn't get treatment in time and he died. So yes, coronavirus is still killing around 1,000 or more people every day in India as well as USA. For young people also, it's worthwhile to avoid going out unnecessarily. So if the nature of your work allows you to work from home, please continue to do so. Also, high-risk activities like parties and get-togethers must be avoided. Yes, we are all bored, and during this period of stress, it's important for us to connect to our friends and relatives. But we must continue with our online get-togethers for few more months. Luckily, in this disease, safeguarding ourselves is in our own hands to a great extent. It is critical that we take out the time to exercise. We sleep adequately. We avoid sugar, eat healthy. We can take vitamin supplements and probiotics. Okay, but what do I do when I actually test positive? Don't panic and no need to feel guilty. Some of us can get this infection even if we follow all the precautions. If you keep yourself fit, then your risk of getting a severe COVID infection is extremely low. And just in case you get a severe infection, take treatment immediately. Do not stay back at home thinking that it will get well on its own. In this illness, whether you take treatment early or whether you take it late, decides the outcome to a great extent. But how does one come to know that he has developed a severe infection? If the fever is high grade and persistent, if there is difficulty in breathing, or there is pain or discomfort in the chest, there is confusion or drowsiness, or the lips and face appear bluish, or on checking with a pulse oximeter, the oxygen saturation is less than 94%, then you must go to the hospital. Best is, if you test positive, be in touch with your doctor and he will tell you what to do when.